بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. I commence by giving salam to all of you who are present today, again with the speech, just like I did yesterday. And I thank Ustaz for allowing me today to give another one in order to get many rewards from it, and for you to understand and act according to whatever you hear from me that can benefit you. Just like yesterday, today is going to be not like yesterday, but a little bit different. Yesterday we talked about the signs, the day of judgment. But today I want to relate to you a story from the Quran, a very beneficial story that is meant for us to take lessons from it. As you know, the Quran is composed with many lessons. Every ayah that you read, there might be a lesson in it, or there might be something informing you of what's about to happen in the future, or what's going to take place in the day of judgment. And the Quran is a book that no one can disagree that it is the most authentic book in this world. From the time of the Prophet ﷺ until now, there is not a book that is more authentic than the Quran itself, or there is not a mistake that's pointed out from the Quran. And as you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this to the Prophet ﷺ, so his companions and the one coming after them until the day of judgment could benefit from it. So there are stories and many other lessons within the Quran. But when you read the Quran, when you read the translation of the Quran, you will find that many of the stories, it is very brief, meaning there's not a lot of details in it. And there's a logic reason behind it, that why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals such stories and not to give too much detail, not to give us too much detail. And in Surah Al-Kahf is one of the chapters of the Quran. There's many stories in that surah, in that chapter. There's many stories. And the story I'm going to relate today is from Surah Al-Kahf. Is one of the stories Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. At the time of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we know that the kuffar of Quraysh, meaning the disbelievers of Quraysh, were very harsh to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. They used to insult him, they used to challenge him, they used to question him. And one of the questions that they questioned the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was the people of the cave. So the kuffar of Quraysh, the disbelievers of Quraysh, sent someone by the name of Nadr ibn Harith and Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt to the Yahud, meaning the Jews in Mecca. They sent those two, Nadr ibn Harith and Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt, to the Jews to be certain, or to ask them if this man is really the prophet that he claimed to be. That was their question. They sent those two to the Yahuds to ask them whether this man is really what he claimed, or whether there is really a prophet that is in our time right now. So when they sent them to the Jews answered them. They said, if you propose this man these three questions, and he gives you a decent answer, and he answers it in the correct way, in the way that it happened, then know he is what he claimed, and know he is a prophet from God. So those three questions, when the kuffar presented it to the Prophet ﷺ. What were those two questions? One of them was, what is the soul, or the matter of the soul? The soul. Can you tell us more about the soul? And the second question was, who was the man that traveled around the world? That traveled around the world. And the third one was what? The third one was, can you tell us more about the people of the cave? Can you tell us? Can you give us information regarding the people of the cave? So they asked these three questions to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told them, go and come back tomorrow, and I will tell you exactly. I will give you the exact answers. And as we know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, in huwa illa wahyu yuha. Whatever the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, it did not directly come from him, but it was a revelation. It was a revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he told them to come back tomorrow, because then I will receive revelation from Allah answering your questions. He told them to come back tomorrow. So when they came back the next day, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not receive revelation. He told them to come back. When they came back the next day, he told them, again, go back until tomorrow. And that happened 3 times, meaning they went back and forth. That happened 5 times. They went back and forth 5 times because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't receive revelation regarding those 3 questions. And the 6th day, they came, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam then received revelation from Allah answering those 3 questions. But what was the purpose behind that delay? What was the purpose? So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the first time he told them, go back and come the next day, he did not say inshallah. And it's one of the things that we can learn. Even though the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the best man in this world, he still had to acknowledge the fact that Allah is one, and he does whatever he wants. He does it whenever he wants it. So when he didn't say inshallah, Allah did not send down to him revelation, because he did not say inshallah. And inshallah means by the will of God. So because of that statement that he didn't make, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala delayed the revelation for 5 days. And that's a lesson we Muslims should take. Whatever we do, we should follow it with inshallah. Whatever we say, we should follow it with inshallah, because it only happens when Allah wants it to happen. And another thing that points out to the importance of saying inshallah is when a Muslim swear, for example, if I swear that I will do something and I don't do it, there has to be a punishment for me. In the Sharia, in the Islamic law, you should be punished for swearing and not doing what you said you would do after swearing. But if you swear and say inshallah, then if you forget or if you don't do it, there's no punishment for you. Just why? There's no punishment for you because you said inshallah. But if you didn't say it when you swear, if you didn't follow it with inshallah, then you will be punished. So that's the importance of saying inshallah. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the 6th day, he revealed the revelation regarding those 3 questions, those answers to the question they proposed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the first one was, they asked about the soul, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the answer. وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. They asked you about the soul. Tell them the soul is a matter of Allah, meaning it's something that only Allah knows, and you do not know anything about the soul except for a little knowledge that Allah has given you. Meaning you know nothing about the soul except for a little thing. That was the answer Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to the Kuffar of Quraysh. The second one was the man who traveled around the world, who went east and west? The answer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually gave a story regarding to that man. And as I said yesterday, the man is Dhul Qarnayn. He was a righteous king. He is a righteous king that once ruled the whole world. That was Dhul Qarnayn. And he gave the story about Dhul Qarnayn in Surah Al-Kahf. He actually mentioned the story of Dhul Qarnayn in Surah Al-Kahf. And the third one was the people of the cave. The people of the cave, which is the story I'm going to give you more information about the story today. So once between the time of Isa ibn Maryam and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was an area where the people used to worship idols, meaning polytheism had spread there. Polytheism was widely spread in that area. And the king of that area, he was the one that used to control the people, meaning he was also one of those who worshipped idols. And since it was the time from Isa ibn Maryam to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, some of those people, meaning a small portion of those people, used to follow the teachings of Isa ibn Maryam. They used to follow the teachings of Isa ibn Maryam, but the king did not like it. The king did not like those people those people who followed the teaching of Isa ibn Maryam. He hated it. That's why he went around the area, or anyone who lived there, who resided there, he went around killing those who followed the teachings of Isa ibn Maryam. But in that land, there was a young kid, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned Id awal fitya. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said there was kids, but I'm gonna start with saying because the story goes like that. There was a kid actually in that area. There was only a young boy there, and the ulamas, or the majority of scholars agree that those kids, those fitya, those young kids, were actually those young the men, or whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, those were kids. They were not adults. They were not people who were like 30 years old, 20. No, they were young kids, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said ida wal fitya. And fitya, in the form it comes, in that form, it means someone who has not reached the age of 10. It means someone who has not reached the age of 10. So they were kids. So in that area, there was a kid who questioned what the people believed in, meaning he asked the question regarding, why you believe in these idols when you should believe in the one who created you. It doesn't make sense that you worshiping multiple idols, but not the one who created you, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he had questions. He was pondering over the existence of God. So he was sitting on a tree, pondering over the existence of God, wondering why there is multiple idols around when there's only one God. Why are the people worshiping this when they should be worshiping that, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And as he was doing that, as he was sitting there pondering over that, another young boy came with the same idea, with the same mindset, and with the same question, which was that why are these people worshiping this when they should be worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And again, another young man came with the same mindset, with the same question, with the same intellect. Why are these people worshiping this when they should be worshiping that? And it happened until those kids reached, or those young men or young kids reached 9, meaning reached 7, meaning it started from 1, and then a second kid came, and then the second, and the third one, and the fourth one, until it reached 7. So there were 7 young kids who knew nothing of each other, meaning they didn't know each other, they didn't know where they lived. But the only thing that gathered them was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The only thing that gathered them was Tawheed, what was the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They had the same mindset, they had the same intellect, and they had the same question, which was, why are these people worshiping idols when they should be worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's a debate actually. Allah mentioned it within the Jews and the early scholars. They debated over the number of those kids, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the numbers. He didn't actually explicitly say this was the numbers, but the ayahs come like this: سيقولون ثلاثة رابعهم كلبهم ويقولون خمسة ثامنهم سادس خمسة سادسهم كلبهم رجما بالغيب ويقولون سبعة وثامنهم كلبهم قل ربي أعلم بعدتهم ما يعلمهم إلا قليل. So the number of those kids, Allah said, they said that it was 3 kids. It was 3 young kids, and the third and the fourth was the dog. And I will come to a dog later on. And they said that some of them said that it was 4, and then the 5th was the dog. And some said that it was 5, and the 6th was the dog. And some says that it was 7, and the 8th was the dog. And the mufassirun, meaning those who interpret the Quran, they said that the correct, the authentic number is 7. Because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th, He followed it with rajman bil ghaib. And rajman bil ghaib means a saying or a claim without evidence. Without evidence. And when He said the 7th and the 8th, He did not follow it with rajman bil ghaib. He did not say it is a saying without an evidence or something like that. He did not follow it with a statement that can get rid of that number. So when He said ثلاثة رابعهم كلبهم ويقولون خمسة سادسهم كلبهم, He said رجما بالغيب, a saying without evidence. But when He said سبعة وثامنهم كلبهم, He did not say رجما بالغيب. That's why the scholars, those who interpret the Quran, said that the right number is 7, and the 8th was the dog. So let's go on to the story. So as they were sitting there, they gathered those young kids, who know nothing of each other. The only thing that gathers them is Iman, which is Tawheed Billah. The only thing that binded them, that kept them close, was the oneness of God. So as time goes on, the king, the one who was running around or going around killing those who are monotheism, the king came to know that these kids or worship is something that differs from the majority, that differs from those who worship idols. So he didn't like that. So he invited those kids. He took those kids to his palace. And tried to convince them to come back to what the people are worshiping, which is the idols. But as he was talking to them, he noticed that, or at the end, he noticed that these kids are so adherent to what they believe. They are strictly adherent to what they believe, which is the oneness of God. So he told them, come back the next day. And the kids, they knew that the king was about to kill them. So one of them said, let's go to a mountain and hide in a cave. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that they actually made a supplication to Allah. قالوا ربنا غلبت علينا. No, actually, that's not they made a supplication to Allah, which was Allah guide us or bestow upon us rahmah. Rahman means mercy. Bestow upon us mercy and make our way to the right path easy. Make easy for us our way to the right path. So one of them said, as I said earlier, let's go to a mountain. Since we're about to be killed by the king, let's go to a mountain and hide there so the king does not catch us. So on their way to that mountain, the dog I was talking comes into now. On their way to that mountain, a dog followed them. A dog out of nowhere, the dog followed them. The dog wanted to, follow them in their journey. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the number was 7, and the 8th one was the dog. So there was a dog on their way, or the dog followed them on their way to the cave, and the dog was there to protect them. Some says the dog was there to protect them, or the dog was there to accompany them in their journey. So when they went into the cave, the king started looking for them. The people started looking for them because the king, he told them come back the next day. Then they didn't come, so he went with his army and tried to look for them. And the army actually came next to the cave that they were in, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blinded them, meaning did something to them in a way that they could not see inside the cave. They could not see that they are inside the cave. And it's just a sign that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect that, or protect those who are aware of him or who comply with him. And that's just a lesson that we can take from that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blinded their eyes so they could not see the kids that were inside the cave. So as they were in the cave, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَضَرَبْنَا عَلَىٰ آذَانِهِمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ سِنِينَ عَدَدًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded that they get into a deep sleep, that they go into a deep sleep. So they went to sleep, and they went to sleep. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَضَرَبْنَا عَلَىٰ آذَانِهِمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ سِنِينَ عَدَدًا. They actually went to deep sleep. And for us,
آذانهم في الكهف سنين عددا.
Thank you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَضَرَبْنَا عَلَىٰ آذَانِهِمْ فِي الْكَهْفِ سِنِينَ عَدَدًا. So inside that cave, Allah made them sleep. Inside that cave, Allah made them sleep. So how long was the sleep actually? How long is the sleep? So the sleep, they slept 309 years. 309 years. They slept for 309. That's 3 centuries and almost a decade. They slept for 3 centuries and almost a decade. And for everything that Allah does, there is a reason. For everything that Allah does, there is a reason. The reason for that sleep is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was trying to make a sign out of them, make a sign to the people out of them, as we will come to know later on in the story. So what happened to their bodies when they were sleeping for 3 centuries? As you know, when someone is like dead, it doesn't take long for the body to compose. But these were sleeping actually. It's like they were dead. They went to sleep. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them go into deep sleep. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, during that 309 years, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually preserved their body, meaning he protected their body. And how did he protect their body? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that the way the sun was setting and the way the sun was rising, that when the sun rises and when the sun sets, the sun cannot get into the cave, meaning the rays of the sun never get into the cave. Because if the ray of the sun went into the cave and touched their bodies for 309 years, then there's definitely going to be their body is definitely going to be injured, or they might become decomposed or something like that. So when they wake up, their body wouldn't be in the same state that it was when they went to sleep. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the sun rise and set in a way that the rays of the sun would not touch their body, would not get inside the cave. And one of the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected them was وَنُقَلِّبُهُمْ ذَاتِ الْيَمِينِ وَذَاتِ الشِّمَالِ. During that 309 years, as they were sleeping, they turned from left to right. Because if they had settled in one position, if they were to sleep in one position for 309 years, maybe they would have become a statue. When they wake up, they could have moved. They can't move then. Or maybe something bad, or maybe they would stick to the ground, or be part of the land, be part of the cave. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them sleep and move from left to right. So when they wake up, they're not going to realize, or they're not going to be aware that something happened to their body. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that when they were sleeping, their eyes were open. When they were sleeping, their eyes were open. وَتَحْسِبُهُمْ أَيْقَاظًا وَهُمْ رُقُودٌ. If you were to see them, you would think that they were awake. but they're actually sleeping because they were sleeping with their eyes open. And there's a reason behind that, which is that to protect their eyes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made their eyes open. Because if you were to close all the time, then something bad would happen to their eyes. Something bad, a disease or something else can affect their eyes. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the other way, or another way He protected them, He mentioned that لو اطلعت عليهم لوليت منهم فرارا ولملئت منهم رعبا. He said that if you were to see them, you would have run away from them. If you were to see them in the way they were when they were sleeping, you would have run away from them. And the reason behind it is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to protect them from anyone that could harm them, from anyone that can come inside the cave and harm them. That doesn't mean just because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, if you were to see them, you would run away from them. That doesn't mean that their body changed, or their hair was too long, or their nails was too long, or something bad, or they had a bad appearance. That does not mean that, but it's just a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He made them in such a way, or they were sleeping in such a way that whoever saw them would have run away from them because their eyes were open. They looked in this, looked in certain appearance that whoever saw them would run away from them. And these are all the reason why I'm mentioning this, which is the way Allah protected them. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected them, is that because when someone is doing something sincerely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when someone is doing something sincerely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no matter what, Allah will protect you. Don't look for the circumstances. Don't look for the things that might happen when doing this thing for Allah. Don't look at that. Look at the benefit. You're doing it sincerely. You're doing it sincerely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah will protect you, just like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ya ghulam, ihfadillah yahfadhuk." If you are aware of God and you adhere to Him, then He will protect you. And He will protect you. And that's one of the reasons why I mentioned this. Whoever runs to Allah, Allah will guide you. Whoever runs to Allah, Allah will make sure nothing bad comes in your way. Just like the question I received yesterday, which was, how do you prepare for the day of judgment? How do you prepare for the day of judgment? And the answer is, make sure you follow the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ, and make sure you're doing things sincerely for Allah. Because when you're doing things sincerely for Allah, then just like what the Prophet ﷺ said, يَحْفَظَكَ اللَّهُ, then Allah will protect you. Allah will protect you. So during the time that they were asleep for 309 years, which is like 3 centuries and almost a decade, the situation that happened, that was outside, the situation that the people were living in changed a lot. It's like 3 centuries. Everything had changed. But the people still remember the story of all, still remember that there were a bunch of kids who ran away and hid from the king. The people still remember that, and they had to remember it because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted it to be like that. He wanted the people to remember their story, because when they wake up, it could be a sign for them. When they wake up, it could be a sign for them. So for 309 years, those people, even though everything had changed, the circumstances and the situations around them had changed, they still remember that there were a bunch of kids that ran away into hiding because they were afraid of the king that was at that time. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَكَذَلِكَ أَعْثَرْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ لِيَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ وَأَنَّ السَّاعَةَ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهَا. Maybe the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them remember the story and made the people be aware that there were kids that were hiding is because He wanted it to be a sign of the day of judgment. And I will get into that later. So when they were sleeping after 309 years, وَكَذَلِكَ بَعَثْنَاهُمْ لِيَتَسَاءَلُوا بَيْنَهُمْ قَالَ قَائِلٌ مِّنْهُمْ كَمْ لَبِثْتُمْ. So when they woke up, they said, قَالَ قَائِلٌ مِّنْهُمْ كَمْ لَبِثْتُمْ. Allah said, قَالَ قَائِلٌ مِّنْهُمْ كَمْ لَبِثْتُمْ. One of them said, how long have we stayed here? How long have we been sleeping? قَالُوا لَبِثْنَا يَوْمًا أَوْ بَعْضَ يَوْمٍ. So one of them said, maybe we stayed here, or maybe we were sleeping for like a day or half a day. And when you, like, for them, when they woke up, and what we can drive from this thing, from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, which is قَالُوا لَبِثْنَا يَوْمًا أَوْ بَعْضَ يَوْمٍ, what we can conclude from that, or what we can say from that, is that nothing had changed, nothing in their body, meaning their appearance, nothing had changed. Because if something was to change, meaning if their hair or their nail was too long, they would definitely notice that they had not slept for a day or half a day, because something like that cannot grow just in a few hours, maybe a year or so. Yeah, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected their body. So when they wake up, they wouldn't notice anything that had changed. They wouldn't notice anything, meaning nothing in their body. Although they were sleeping for years, nothing changed. Nothing in the appearance didn't change. The hair didn't change. Nothing had changed within their bodies. Nothing had changed. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it like that. So when they woke up and they asked themselves, how long have we slept? And some of them said, well, maybe we slept a day or two, or maybe we slept just half a day. And yeah, after that, as you know, for sleeping.
I'm not right there. I'm not. You think I don't live here for 17 years? Yeah,
so sleeping for 309 years, you definitely feel some hunger. So they were hungry. When they woke up, they were hungry. And they said, فَبَعَثُوا أَحَدَكُمْ بِوَرِقِكُمْ هَذِهِ إِلَى الْمَدِينَةِ فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَيُّهَا أَزْكَىٰ طَعَامًا. So one of them said, let's send someone, since we're hungry, let's send someone into the city to buy us food. And make sure when you go, you lower yourself, because you don't want the king to see you. So they weren't aware that centuries has passed. They weren't aware that years have passed. So they didn't know that. That's why they were like, when you go in, make sure you hide yourself. Make sure you lower yourself before the king sees you. So the guy they sent to the city to get them food, he had the money that he had was way out of date. Basically, it was expired, because 3 centuries later, of course, the money that you use from now, the money that was back then and now would differ. The color would differ. Everything else would be different. So when he went into the city and asked, when he went to the market and asked the place where he could buy food, when he went to the seller, he gave him the money, and the guy was surprised, because what he's given, he doesn't recognize it. Well, he does, but that's not the money that we use now. That's not the currency that is available to us now. We don't use it. It was like way back, and they started asking him questions, because he looks weird, and he's dressed weird, and the money that he's given to them is very out of date, or it's from a very long time. Of course, he's dressed weird. I mean, the way he's dressed is like if I dressed like those people who dresses up in the 1980s or 1970s. It's like he comes out with a clothes that has been only worn by those who live in the 1970s. So of course he'll look weird. He'll look strange to the people. So they started asking him questions. Where are you from, and why you look so different from us, and where your clothes and your currency and the money that you give is way different from our time now. And they figured out that he was one of those kids who ran away into a cave to hide from the king. Because as I said earlier, the story is still known. The story of those kids who ran away from a king is still known. So they knew that he must be one of those who ran away and hid somewhere to escape from the punishment of the king. And he was very afraid when he came out, and the people knew his story. Of course, to him too, to his perspective, everything looks different. He saw that everything looks different. The place looked different, but he didn't know that the religion has changed. He didn't know the religion has changed, and for that he was very afraid. So they took him to the king. They took the guy to the king, and the king actually was a believer. The king actually was practicing monotheism, meaning he was a believer of Allah. And the kid came to know that all these people are righteous people, and this king is a believer of Allah. So he was very relieved then. So the king told him to go back to the cave and invite his friends to come live inside the city, to come live in the palace. But some narration said that when the kid went back to the cave, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took their souls right from there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took their souls right from there. And some said that the king went to the cave to visit them and invite them to the palace or invite them to the cities. But they refused, and they asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take their souls. They asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take their souls. And from that's the end of the story. And as I said right now, the story that's in Surah Al-Kahf. Surah Al-Kahf is also composed of many stories, of many lessons. And we can learn from this story a lesson or two, because these were just young people. These kids were just young people. As I said, Id al-Fitya, some interpreters says that al-Fitya means a person who has not reached the age of 10, So it is very, very unlikely or very hard to understand that kids who have not reached the age of 10 can do such thing like that. But it also goes back to the majesty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It all goes back to the will of Allah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to teach us a lesson. Because at the end of the story, he said, وَكَذَلِكَ أَعْتَوْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ لِيَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ وَأَنَّ سَاعَةَ لَا. The only reason he made them sleep for 209 years was to make them, to make the people be sure that the promise of Allah is true. The promise of Allah is true, and the day of judgment will take place. A lot of people are in doubt that the day of judgment will not happen. It's impossible for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to resurrect a human being. So making them sleep for 309 years and waking them up centuries later is one of the signs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can make such a thing happen, can resurrect a human being however he wills and whenever he wills. And that's just one of the signs of why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or that's just one of the reasons why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relate this story to us, to make it a sign or a lesson for us. And as I said earlier too, that within these stories are very brief, meaning the stories that are related in this book, which is the Quran al-Karim. It doesn't have too much details. The longest story in this the longest story in the Quran is the story of Yusuf. And even the story of Yusuf, there's not a lot of details in it, because the brothers of Yusuf was not mentioned. And all these, there's a logic reason behind it. All of these brief stories, there's a logic reason behind it, because it's basically the way of Allah telling us that those details, it does not benefit us. Those details in any such way, it does not have any beneficial thing behind it. It does not benefit us. Whether we know it or not, it does not change the story. It does not change the lesson. It does not change the story. It does not change the lesson. So that's one of the reasons why some stories, there's not a lot of details, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it like that. He wants only the part that can benefit us. He wants us to take the lessons and to benefit from it. He wants us to take the lesson and to benefit from it. And in Surah Al-Kahf, there are many lessons, many stories, like the people, the person of the garden, the one who was blessed with wealth by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he relates everything back to himself. He says that all of this is from my hard work and from me striving to get it, but it's not from anyone else. And then a man reminded him that no, whatever you get or whatever is being blessed upon you is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the one who made it like that. He's the one who gave you everything. And along with that, like the story of Khidr, Musa and Khidr, when Musa alayhi salam, when he thought that he had all the knowledge, or he was the most knowledgeable in his time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him to Khidr, and Khidr showed him that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more knowledgeable, and he gives his knowledge to whoever he wants. And whoever think that they are more knowledgeable, make sure he also think that there is another person who is more knowledgeable than him. And on top of every person who has knowledge, then there's another person who has more knowledge than him, and he is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's a lesson we should take. And then there's the story of Dhul Qarnayn, the one who was a righteous ruler. How many kings now in our time are righteous? How many rulers, how many presidents, or how many queens or princes or in this world that is justice? So the story is there for us to take and to draw the lesson of that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to tell us, that there was a king who was righteous. There was a king who ruled the whole world, and yet he was still justice to the people. And that's Dhul Qarnayn, and we should all reflect from him. And that's one of the stories in Surah Al-Kahf. And it goes like that. The Quran is basically like that. There's stories, and there's signs, and there's things that yet to happen but will happen in the future. And it's all meant for us to take lessons, to draw lessons from it, and to learn from it. Just like how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed it to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to teach his companions and to teach his ummah, from these lessons and from these stories narrated to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm gonna stop there. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد.
بسم الله. يا سبقت عن نقاط النبي.